again here. So this time we are going to look at chapter 7, respiration. So first of all, let's spend a couple of minutes here by looking at the learning outcomes that we are going to achieve in this session. So first of all, we are going to look at what are the living processes that require energy, and number two, we have to identify the main substrate for producing energy. Number three, state two types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration, then the other one is anaerobic respiration, so which are also stated here. And then number four, we are going to explain about what cell respiration is by giving examples of the production of energy from glucose in aerobic respiration. So of course, we still do not know what are they. We are going to look into them one by one after this. And then lastly, we must be able to write chemical equations for both of them and to compare and contrast these two processes. Alright, having said so, now let's look at the four phases today. These are the four phases that we are going to experience. We are going to go through today. So the first phase is a why phase. Now, why do you breathe? Now, of course, some of you might tell me, well, because we need to gain oxygen from the air. And then what do you eat? Oh, because we need to have glucose. But the problem is, why do you need oxygen and glucose in the first place? Why do you need them? Now, to explain our answer, then perhaps we can look at this part. Now, can you look at the yellow, the part which is highlighted yellow? So respiration can be divided into two types. Alright, so we have the external respiration as well as the internal respiration. External respiration is also known as breathing. So this is a process, in which we get the oxygen from the air and remove the CO2 from our body. Internal respiration, on the other hand, is known as cellular respiration. So this is a respiration that occurs inside a cell. So the reason is to oxidize the glucose using the oxygen that we have gained from external respiration to produce the energy needed by the body cells. Alright, now so this explains why we breathe and why we eat. Now next phase is what phase? Now so what are they? What are respiration? Now so let's recall again. Respiration, there are two types of respiration: external respiration and internal respiration. So in our syllabus, we are going to look at external respiration, like for example, the breathing mechanisms of human beings, insects, fish, frogs, as well as in amoeba. So how do they breathe, how do they get oxygen, and how do they remove oxygen from their body? And then whereas in internal respiration, we are going to look at how it happens inside a cell at the cellular level. Now we know what are they, respiration. So we are going to look at how they happen. Now, so let's look at the internal respiration first. So internal respiration can be divided into two types. One is aerobic respiration, the respiration that happens in the presence of oxygen, and the other one is the respiration that happens in the absence of oxygen. How come? How come we need this type of oxygen, this type of respiration? I'm going to explain in a while. First of all, let's look at aerobic respiration. Now, so this is a typical respiration that is commonly known to us. So we have the glucose from the food that we eat, and then this is the oxygen that we gain from the external respiration. So when these two diffuse into the body cells, the body cells are going to oxidize the glucose to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Alright, so we gain 2,898 kilojoule energy per mole of glucose oxidized. And this amount of energy is equivalent to 38 ATP. And for your information, this process takes place in the mitochondria. Now, as we know, mitochondria is the energy generator of a cell. So here, from this diagram, you know that glucose, like for example, sugars, like for example, glucose, oxygens, they are taken into the mitochondria to produce the energy needed by the body cells. The byproducts of this process is carbon dioxide and H2O. then how do you link the energy production to ATP? Now, for your information, the energy produced by the aerobic respiration is stored in ATP. How do we do that? Now, so look at it. So this is a molecule of ADP. So you have an adenine here, ribose, and 2 phosphate group. Now, so how do you make ATP from ADP? So first of all, you need an inorganic phosphate group to be joined to ADP. So to do this, we need to add in energy. And as a result, we get ATP. So when the cells need energy, ATP will be immediately broken down to ADP plus P plus energy. Alright, so we can say that energy is the full bar battery, while the ADP is actually the battery, okay, which has run flat. Now, so here is some information for your knowledge. Now, 1 calorie is equivalent to 4.2 joule. Now, so normally the food label, okay, will state the energy content, okay, in terms of calorie. But what we learn here is joule. So what is the relationship between calorie and joule? Here we know 1 calorie is equivalent to 4.2 joule. So let's say on average we need 2,400 kilocalorie of energy for an adult. So 2,400 kilocalorie is equivalent to 10,080 kilojoule of energy. So having known that 1 mole of glucose is going to give us 2,898 kilojoule of energy. So that means to say that to gain so much of energy, we need so much of mole of glucose. So when converted to mass, we know that on a daily basis we need roughly about 600 grams of glucose. 600 grams of glucose divided by 180 grams per mole. This is the molar mass of glucose that we get. Then we get 3.478 mole. All right. So if you divide this mass by 3 moles, then you know we need roughly about 200 grams of carbohydrates in our food. Alright, so this is the first part about aerobic respiration. Aerobic exercise means the exercise that requires oxygen. So aerobic respiration is the respiration that requires oxygen. Now, next one would be anaerobic respiration. Now, under what circumstances we are going to carry out anaerobic respiration? It happens when the body cells do not have enough oxygen to carry out the aerobic respiration. Now, it happens under a few circumstances. Now, so let's look at the examples in animals first. Now, so in the absence of oxygen, the glucose is broken down partially to form lactic acid and a little bit of energy. As we can see here, a lot of energy is still trapped in the molecule of lactic acid. So if you recall the aerobic respiration, for 1 mole of glucose oxidized, we gain 38 ATP. But in anaerobic respiration, we only gain 2 ATP. The reason is because, as I mentioned earlier, energy is still trapped within the molecules of lactic acid. Alright, now so why do we carry out anaerobic respiration? It happens during vigorous activity where the oxygen supply is not enough to fulfill the oxygen demanded by the cells. So this time, some of the body cells are able to carry out aerobic respiration, while the rest have to carry out anaerobic respiration just to keep the body going, just to keep all the living processes going. Now, so of course, it comes with a price, the lactic acid. The accumulation of the lactic acid in the skeletal muscle will cause muscle fatigue as well as muscle cramp. Now, so this is especially true now after vigorous exercise. You feel the pain and the ache in the muscles, and simply because of the accumulation of lactic acid there. So how do we solve this problem? We are going to review in a while. So after exercise, normally the coach or your PE teacher will ask you, please do some cooling, some cooling down exercise. Please continue to walk about, maintain your heartbeat. Now, the reason is because we need the heartbeat to maintain the blood flow. So to transport the lactic acid accumulated in the skeletal muscle to the liver. And then at the same time, we need to breathe in more oxygen. We actually pant a lot because we need to get in more oxygen to oxidize the lactic acid to carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Alright, so if you don't do that, what might happen is muscle cramp. Now let's look at this part. Now in this diagram, we can see a man running, and this is the rate of oxygen intake, in liter per minute. Now he starts running here. Now before he starts running, basically the oxygen demand and the oxygen supply is at the same rate. But when he starts running, the oxygen demand actually increases suddenly, but the oxygen supply by the lungs needs some time to keep up, to keep pace with the oxygen demand. So that's why there is a lag here. So this part, which is shaded black, is the oxygen deficit. This is when the body cells have to carry out anaerobic respiration. And the byproducts, as we know just now, is lactic acid. When he stops running, the oxygen demand actually drops immediately. But we keep on panting, we keep on breathing heavily, simply because we need to breathe in more oxygen to repay the oxygen debt that we have incurred just now. Now, why do we need to breathe in more oxygen here? Now, as we can see in the above equation here, now lactic acid is accumulated in the muscle, in the skeletal muscles. We need to transport the lactic acid stored in the skeletal muscle to liver. Here, we need the oxygen to break it down. Now, so when our breathing rate is going to drop back to normal, it is when we have paid off all the oxygen debt. Now, please pay attention to these type of questions. It might come up in examination. Okay, now next one. Anaerobic respiration also happens in plants under certain circumstances. Now, for example, during flood time, the roots are submerged in flood water. So this time, the plants are not able, especially the roots are not able to gain oxygen for normal aerobic respiration. Now this time, the glucose has to be broken down. To ethanol, carbon dioxide, and a little bit of energy. And another organism that carries out anaerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen would be yeast. Yeast also do the same thing. So that means to say that the products of the anaerobic respiration of plants and yeast are similar. One is ethanol and one is carbon dioxide, and the energy produced is actually 210 kilojoule, which is almost equivalent to 2 ATP. Now let's recall, how does anaerobic and aerobic respiration take place? In aerobic respiration, the glucose can be broken down completely to form 6 molecules of CO2. So as you can recall here, the 6 carbons are actually linked by covalent bond. So with the oxygen, we break them down into 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. So that's why the energy produced is actually a lot, which is almost equivalent to 38 ATPs. And then in the absence of oxygen, of course, the oxidation of glucose is actually incomplete. So this time, in animal cells, glucose is broken down partially to form 2 molecules of lactic acid and a little bit of energy, which is almost equivalent to 2 ATPs. So the lactic acid can cause muscle ache, muscle pain. In plants and yeast, glucose will be broken down partially to form ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. So the energy produced is also very low, which is almost equivalent to 2 ATP because a lot of energy is still trapped within the molecules of ethanol. Okay, good. Now, so the last phase is the what if phase. Now there are two questions posed to you here. Number one, the skeletal muscles carry out anaerobic respiration over a long period of time. Guess what might happen to your skeletal muscle? And number two, plants' roots were submerged in water over a long period of time. So what might happen? So to answer this, now let's go back to these questions again. So if we do not remove the lactic acid produced in the skeletal muscle, and then it is going to cause muscle ache and muscle pain. That's why your coach asks you to do cooling down exercise after the exercise, because you need to pay off the oxygen debt. Now, so if you refuse to do so, what might happen to you is you are going to suffer from muscle cramp. Okay, then next part. What if the plants are immersed, the roots are submerged in flood water over a long period of time? Now, for your information, the plants, in order to survive, they must carry out an aerobic respiration. But ethanol, for your information, is actually toxic. The accumulation of ethanol is going to kill the plant cells. So now, at what rate or at what concentration of ethanol the cells will start to die? Now, for your information, in the formation of in beer industry or wine making industry, the concentration of the ethanol that is produced, okay, from the fermentation of yeast is roughly about 13%. It is because beyond 13%, the yeast itself is going to be killed by the ethanol produced. So that means to say that, okay, in plants, okay, perhaps under certain concentration, beyond certain concentration, the root cells are going to be killed as well. But certain plants, like for example paddy plants, they have certain adaptations which enable them to live in a water-locked condition. Like for example, okay, their stems is actually hollow, which allows more gas molecules to diffuse to the roots part, and then the cells are also adapted to withstand or to tolerate a higher concentration of ethanol. But not for all plants. Okay, imagine that if our school field is submerged in flood water, for a couple of days, after the water has subsided, you might expect the grass to die. Alright? Now let's recall. So what would you want to breathe and what do you want to eat? You want to gain oxygen and you want to gain glucose. The reason is because you want to carry out respiration, the internal respiration especially. So when you have sufficient amount of oxygen, so basically we carry out aerobic respiration to produce CO2, water, and a lot of energy. So this energy are necessary to keep the body moving, to maintain the body, metabolic processes or physiological processes in the body. And then when the oxygen demand is greater than the oxygen supply, or we say the oxygen supply couldn't keep pace with the oxygen demand, so this time some of the body cells have to resort to anaerobic respiration. This is when, like in human being, lactic acids are produced, and plants and yeast, ethanol and carbon dioxide produced. Now, the carbon dioxide produced is also used in the bread making industry. It is used to raise the dough, if you still remember. Now, next part, okay, what would happen? Now, this might come in your examination as well. Okay, now if you carry out an aerobic respiration over a long period of time, now so what will happen? So it might cause accumulation of lactic acid and cause muscle fatigue, muscle cramp, and then in order to prevent all those things from happening, so you need to breathe in a lot of oxygen to pay off the oxygen debt. And then plants, they couldn't survive, okay, long in water. For terrestrial plants, okay, they are not able to survive in water, simply because the ethanol accumulator can kill them. Alright, so now what do you need to do right now is to make a table to compare and contrast the aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Alright, so with this we end our class. Thank you. See you again in our next lesson.